Some skyscrapers have been accused of throwing pedestrians to the ground. They do not do it on purpose, but the passers-by who pass by them lose their balance due to the strong winds that form at their feet due to some design flaws that cause drafts. In London, the so-called skyscraper walkie-talkie of 20 Fenchurch Street has become a nightmare. First, the shape of its facade reflected the sun with such intensity that it melted some parts of a car. But although this was solved, the worst is the gusts of wind that form at your feet, which have come to cause damage to shops and even to knock down pedestrians. In cities like Toronto, the problem is not only with a single building, since the most recent constructions have caused several areas of the city to create strong gusts of air that disturb the day-to-day of citizens. These strong winds around the bases of the skyscrapers are nothing new, and are caused by well-known wind effects. Architects often take them into account when creating the plans of their buildings, but small design errors or measures and poorly taken wind forecasts can lead to their creations become a nightmare for citizens. The strong winds at the foot of the skyscrapers may be due to two different effects, or the combination of both. The first is the effect of downward current, and it occurs when the wind hits a skyscraper. If doing so has nowhere to move, it is pushed up, down and to the sides. The current flowing to the ground is the fastest and strongest, and generates an acceleration of the wind at street level. This effect can be increased when the structure of the building has completely square corners or a completely vertical facade, and also when the buildings face the wind that comes to them. In the case of large cities the thing is worse, because we must add the one known as Venturi effect or channeling. It is an acceleration of the wind that happens when it has to pass through a narrow space. For example, if the wind suddenly meets two skyscrapers, it will accelerate when it passes through the middle of the two. And there can also be a combination of the two, that there are centers of cities with skyscrapers that have not taken into account the descending currents, and that their streets are so narrow that they also cause the wind tunnels of the channeling effect. Worst of all, little can be done to mitigate these problems once they have finished building the buildings. When you have a city with a particularly intense wind, you have to be clever to build skyscrapers that do not cause problems. Not only to avoid the wind tunnels at the feet, but to try that the tallest and thinnest buildings do not end up swaying due to the wind hitting them. One of the measures that can be taken to prevent buildings from causing these winds is to make them rounded. A good example in London is its Gherkin building, whose rounded contour prevents the formation of wind tunnels. In Chicago, they also worry about the wind, especially the one coming from Lake Michigan, located directly in front of its urban center. Precisely because of these winds, last year an architect announced an ingenious modification for a 95-story skyscraper he was building: leave the floor 83 empty so that the wind circulates and does not swing the building. Its facade was in fact already corrugated to avoid the effects of the wind. This type of modifications and designs are usually carried out after testing with scale models of buildings in wind tunnels. With them, architects can see how their building will behave and how the wind currents will act when they hit them. It may seem simple, but this type of testing can help design solutions afterwards. And when the damage is done, it is only to try to mitigate the effects of wind with patches at street level, because it is not going to demolish a building that has cost millions. Therefore, among the solutions that were proposed in London are to install protective screens against the wind in the street or plant more trees to try to dissipate the air.